Hello, welcome to the show. On this episode, I'm going to be speaking with Marci Hopkins, a renowned TV personality and the mastermind behind the Telly Award-winning talk show, Wake Up with Marci. She's also an accomplished author of the book Chaos to Clarity, a public speaker, and a recovery expert. Today, we're going to talk about some of the trauma that she's been through, including sexual abuse and alcoholism that led her to write her book, plus launch her own talk show. So get ready because you do not want to miss this episode. Welcome to MOmetize Your Passion, a place for moms with big dreams and an eagerness to turn them into a thriving reality. Whether you're a mother looking to monetize your talents, transition from a stagnant job, or explore a fun side hustle, you're in the right place. I'm Caroline, wife, mother, and the visionary behind Tinseltown Mom, a platform dedicated to helping moms to embrace and pursue their God-given dreams. After interviewing nearly 100 celebrities for my platform, one common theme stands out in their success stories: passion. As a former actress, current writer, celebrity blogger, and certified life coach, passion has always been at the core of my journey. And through it all, I've discovered the power of honing our gifts, learning from our past, and using our experiences to uplift others. Join me on the show as I explore stories of celebrity moms and successful mompreneurs, uncovering the roadmap to their accomplishments. I'll also be sharing business and marketing tips to guide you towards tangible ideas for making money. Here, my hope is that you'll find inspiration from God, encouragement, and practical insights to MOmetize your passion. So before we dive in, I do want to invite those who are not on my weekly mailing list to please sign up. If you do, you'll get access on when new podcast episodes will be released, celebrity interviews, giveaways, plus you'll get insight on when my new book is coming out, MOmetize Your Passion, which will help you take your God-led gifts and turn it into a business. Additionally, if you sign up today, you can download a free planner. Just go to the link in my show notes and sign up. All right, let's get into this episode. Many people realize and they know that you're a successful talk show host, you're an entrepreneur, you're a recovery expert who wrote a book, Chaos to Clarity. And people don't know that even though you're successful today, I mean, you have a backstory.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's context to where you are today. So just to provide some context to some people listening who don't know your story, can you just share a little bit about your childhood, like when you first noticed or realized the chaos starting in your life?
Well, and this is the first story in my book, is I'm 6 years old and I'm staying over at my mom's boyfriend's house with her. She had me at just turned 19. So she was a kid when she had me. So she was staying at her boyfriend's. They had been up partying. I woke up early and I saw a Tootsie Roll can and I got into a little mischief with that and found out there was coins in it. And I took the coins. I didn't even know the value of the money. When they got up, my mom's boyfriend came in and he was going to give me this bank. And he felt that it was lighter and saw that the money had been taken out and asked me about it. So what ultimately ended up happening is he took me in front of my mother while she was laying in bed and beat me in front of her. And we ended up going to a family party that day, and she begged me not to say anything to anyone. And ultimately, I ended up telling my grandparents. So with that, they were both kicked out of the house. And I had to make a decision at 6 years old whether I was going to continue living with my mother or live with my grandparents. So that's really where it started.
Wow. So
That I remember.
yeah, that you remember. Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming because your mother allowed this to happen, that she probably suffered herself from some sort of abuse. Like sometimes it's generational. It just keeps, you know what I mean? And it gets passed down.
What's interesting is that I'm not sure of physical abuse. My grandfather had a very explosive temper. I know they were very protective of her. When I would even talk to my mother about it, she really couldn't even explain it. I think that my mother was just, she was always looking for validation, and how she was finding validation was through men.
Mm,
And I fell into that cycle, right? That's what gave me validation. That's what made me feel like I was worth something. And also, my mother used alcohol and drugs to cope with any pain that she was dealing with. I think that when she watched that happen, that she had fear of him, not
mm,
necessarily what took place in her childhood.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Hmm.
So you're 6 years old and you make the decision to stay with your grandparents.
Right.
So
And I tell you, that was great, because at least during the years from 6 to 12, I was with my grandparents. And for the most part, it was great, right? I mean, they gave me values and morals and support, and gave me the most normal childhood that I could have, outside of my grandfather's temper, which was hard to deal with, I will say. But I am grateful to have been there during that time.
yeah, you probably had stability and they taught you a lot during that time.
Exactly. My grandmother was amazing.
So what happened at 12 years old? Did you go back to live with your mother?
I did. So my mother remarried, and we thought this guy was going to be our knight in shining armor, but he ended up, I now know the first 6 months that I was living with them, he was grooming me and sexual abuse began. And my mother didn't leave him when I told her. So it was really difficult time. I completely lost myself. I actually wanted to die in 8th grade. I was failing school, started using alcohol myself to cope. I started uh, I started looking to boys to give me attention, and doing things that I wouldn't normally believe that I would have done had that abuse not been happening. But I began to look at love a very different way. It was having sexual attention from boys is what I began to think love looked like.
Mm. Like, do you
Mhm.
think that your mother, that's what she thought as well? Like maybe it was cyclical, that
I think that
trauma?
there was something that I learned from that. She never could stand on her own 2 feet, so I never sought to be able to do that myself. And then with the sexual abuse, and I was always looking for love. I l- I had so, I mean, I remember being a little girl, and I just exuded love. I loved everybody, and I just wanted to be loved so badly. And then all of this tumultuous life that I had been given as a young child just was changing and shifting who I was. And I completely lost Marcy for a lot of years.
Mm.
And I had all of these bad cycles that I picked up from my youth, and relationship issues and victim mentality, not knowing how to bond with people because I was being moved all the time. I literally moved every 2 years of my young life. So there were a lot of things that were shaping me. And then my mother, anytime something good, bad, or indifferent happened, she was using alcohol or drugs. So for instance, I'm 8 years old, and I said I had a really bad stomach ache. I had a lot of stomach issues. And I know now that was probably because of what I was holding in. She said, here, take some of my margarita. That always helps me go to the bathroom. Like, I'm 8 years old.
Wow.
And I couldn't sleep at her boyfriend's house because I lived in fear. And she started giving me like half a sleeping pill. So these were things that I was taught very young. At
Yeah.
12 years old was the first time I got drunk, and I didn't get in trouble.
Mm.
So this is what I saw. This is what
Yeah.
I was, what? I mean, this was my environment.
Yeah. Like that was your normal. Like even you teaching yourself what love looked like because no one actually taught you in a healthy way what that looked like.
Exactly. Exactly. Especially men.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So at 12 years old, you're living with your mother. So how long did you stay with your mother after that? 12 until you got out of the house?
Yeah. Till I got out of high school, and then I was out. So she stayed with my stepfather until the summer before my senior year of high school. And then she wanted to move again. And I begged her not to move. So at least I could stay in the high school that I'd been to in the last couple of years. And so we ended up staying, and we got a little house in the area, and my mother's drinking was just off the charts. And I was living in fear all the time because I thought she was going to die in the car because she was drinking and driving all the time.
Mm.
And I was, that role shifted where I began to be more of the mother, right? I was kind of taking on that role. So once I turned 18 and got out of the house, I mean, pretty much I tried not to look back. I mean, I saw my mother, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I did not want to go back. Mm-hmm.
So there's some moms listening. They're probably going through something right now. It's probably triggering, like something they've gone through. Maybe they told their mother or their father they didn't believe them, and they've just had to live with that for the rest of their lives. Like, how did you rectify that with your mother?
It took a lot of years, I will tell you. And my mother's alcoholism, I had to deal with that the majority of my life until she died. I mean, she died 3 years ago at 70 from her addiction. It finally killed her.
Mm.
So it was painful. It was burdensome. It made me angry. I had shame. I always had hoped that my mother would get well and I would have that relationship with her. I thought when I had my children, she would change and be there for them. So it was a very empty, hard life to have an alcoholic mother, especially one that didn't protect me. But I always fully loved my mother. That's the irony of it all. Like I always wanted that life with her that I never had or that I always dreamt of.
Yeah.
And when she passed, there was relief. And I felt a sense of peace because my mother didn't have to struggle anymore. I didn't have to struggle. My family didn't have to struggle. I mean, she caused a lot of strife in my entire family, not just my family, my husband and children, but sisters, parents, and such. So it was really difficult. And so how did I move past that? I through my own healing journey, because we've kind of gotten off with my mother now, there's a lot of myself. Like I quit drinking almost 9 years ago. And through my healing journey and discovering myself and my self-worth and my self-love, I then understood that I needed to forgive to be able to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Because all that is doing is holding power over you. When anyone has wronged you, it's not that you are saying that behavior is okay. It wasn't. But I need to ultimately let go and forgive and not hold on to that anger and pain anymore, because it really eats you alive from the inside out.
Yeah. A lot of people needed to hear that. I'm so glad you said it.
It's recognizing the generational cycles, which I talk about in my book, breaking those cycles. My mother was broken and she had a lot of pain. And I just find my mother, I find sadness for her, and she was weak and she never had happiness. And that is sad.
Yeah.
And I had to do a lot of inner child working, where that's where you go inside and you find that child, whatever age that you were hurt, and basically grab that child and tell them they're okay. Them today, right? So it's kind of merging yourself with that child that was in the pain into today when you're healed.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So just going back, because I love to talk about passion and purpose on my show.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of moms are stuck, like they have passions and there's things they want to do, but because of the past, they haven't moved past it. Maybe they're holding on to unforgiveness. So just going back when you were younger, I think I read a little snippet from your book where you said at 19, I think you found a passion for the arts. Is that accurate?
So what happened was, like I said, I left high school. I did not have the guidance. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew the path, right? You go to college once you get out of high school. So I went to junior college. I tried to do that path, and it didn't work for me. And so what happened is my grandmother came to the rescue again, and she took me for some testing to find my interest. What were my passions in, right? So through this testing, it found that I was a very creative being, which I knew. I knew that through my life, I wanted to be an actress when I was a little girl. I wanted to be in front of the camera. I loved art. So these were things that didn't really surprise me. But at that time, those things weren't really pursued, right? They weren't. And I feel like even now sometimes it's like we don't try to nourish that part of our children, that creative side. So I found through that I was a creative being, and we found a school that worked for me, which was the Art Institute of Houston. And I ended up going for media and television and the business behind media.
Yeah.
So I ultimately, that took me on the path of the media industry.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
and do you feel like that helped, like some of your when you were going through some of your darkest days, like that was a coping mechanism, like pursuing your passion, or did it get in the way of your addiction?
So I was very grateful to have found something that I wanted to do, that I was interested in doing, and that was working in television. And I was given opportunities in the industry. I started working for a company called Liberty Sports Communications. They hired me on contract. I was working at restaurants where that just fed into the party scene, which I was very enthralled in. And so once I started working for Liberty Sports Communications, it kind of like lit a fire inside of me. Now, the alcohol throughout my entire time I was working was a factor that held me back, but I also was doing something that I was very driven to do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, now that I have a clear mind and I'm not drinking, I'm like, wow, like what I would have actually accomplished had I not been trying to mask my pain all those years.
Hmm.
But ultimately, I found my husband working at Fox. I was the director of on-air promotions at FX. So I had a successful life and career. I found a way to manage. I mean, it wasn't like I was drunk all the time. It was just drinking wine daily was, and I bet there's a lot of moms out there. It's very common. You know, you have your wine time at night, and
Mm.
that's what I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I think people don't realize alcoholism. It's not necessarily, because I did interview a mom, years back who she
Yeah.
was an alcoholic, but she was maybe drinking 2 to 3 bottles a night and blacking
Oh,
out.
yeah, no, I never did that.
So, but
But
that's not I think some people think that's alcoholism, but it could be you have to drink 2 glasses or a glass of wine every single night, and you have to get
yeah, a
through.
glass of wine a night doesn't warrant a problem. The only time alcohol really needs to be looked at is when it is affecting your life. It's affecting your relationships. It's affecting the way you are managing your life, your work, how you're coping. Are you having to apologize every morning when you wake up, or multiple times in the morning, right? There are ways that you can find that it is starting to create problems in your life. And when it's starting to create problems, whether as a mother, as a wife, as an employee, as someone in the community, for yourself, that's when you really need to start looking at it.
Yeah. Now, when did you realize that it was starting to create a problem for you and maybe you needed to seek help?
So I had the roller coaster ride. So believe me, anytime something started going kind of bad in my life and I wasn't happy, that's when the drinking escalated. Drinking every day was the norm. I saw that was normal for me. To have a glass or two of wine at night was the norm. There were times when my drinking would escalate. When I was not happy, I would use alcohol during those times. And then the cycle was it would get to a place where life would kind of start crumbling around me. And I would get rid of those people, places, and things, move on and start over. But that was a cycle of myself. And then I recognized that it was always at the core me. So when did it start getting to a place that I knew I had to make a change and there wasn't any way I was going back? That was when I got in front of the camera. I'm married. I have 2 children. I'm in my 40s. I start pursuing the passion because there were some things that started happening in my life, and it was taking me on the runway. It was kind of taking me back to that childhood passion of always wanting to be in front of the camera. But what happened is when I started pursuing that career, there's a lot that goes into it. I had to get schooling. I needed to go into New York. I had to get agents. You had to be available at any time they call you, night before. Then if you get the gig, you got to be available the next day. Very difficult when you have young children. And especially when you don't want to bring someone on full time, because I wanted to raise my kids. The one thing that I knew is I didn't want to be my mom. I didn't want my children to feel abandonment. And so I wanted to be there for my children. But what was happening was it was becoming too much for me, trying to maintain this career that I was going after, but also trying to be the best mom, wife, community figure, right? And I was also realizing that I had no self-confidence. I had no self-love. Like I would be shaking like a leaf in front of that camera because I didn't have the confidence in myself. So I started using alcohol more as liquid courage. So as I started doing that, things started getting worse. I was drinking more. I was feeling worse about myself. So it was just perpetuating the problem.
Yeah.
And then I started having problems in my marriage. I started recognizing that I wasn't good for anyone. I was waking up every morning, realizing that I didn't want to continue the cycle, promising myself I wasn't going to drink. It was then that I knew things were getting really bad. And then I had my rock bottom. I did try to stop drinking. I was able to stop drinking, but then I started comparing myself because when I went into AA, that's how I found my help, is through AA. But like you said, like you have this idea of what an alcoholic is. I compared myself to my mom. I wasn't doing any of those things, right? So I quit drinking for 3 months. I went on a vacation. I'm like, I got this. That next year is when just the drinking went off the rails and I ended up getting a DUI. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it was at that point, I went to bed that night after coming home and I was angry, but I woke up the next morning and it was at that point that I surrendered and I knew that I needed help. And God stepped in and it was like, okay, did you get what you needed, your consequence to make you now move forward and start making these changes for yourself? And I went to AA. I told my husband I needed help. He embraced me. And it was the first time I felt that love. That love that I had been searching for all my life was right in front of me.
Wow. I just got chills. You
Yes.
saying that.
But you see, I had built the walls.
Yeah.
I had built the walls. And I know there's so many moms out there. Your husbands are working all the time. You have anger, you have resentment. You're drinking because of it. But I promise you, they are doing their job. They're doing the best they can. And what we need to do is we need to communicate. We need to start filling ourselves up with our own love and stop looking to them to fill our own cup. And I'm almost 9 years sober. I have my book and my show, and I'm just so grateful and to get to be on podcasts and share this with people, to be able to help others and hope that someone out there listening, that they know like, hey, yeah, maybe I am drinking a little too much.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just unhappy. Maybe I need to change my mindset. Maybe I need to become more mindful and stop like me praying for patience every single day. I don't have to pray for patience because now anymore, because I have found the fullness and I know how to cope. I know how to cope today without going after that glass of wine to help me to cope.
Yeah. And I also talk, I love what you said. I also talk about faith a lot on my show too, because I'm a Christian. So I know a lot of, like, I've had some moms on who've had addiction and they, because of their faith, it's also helped them through some
Yeah,
of their darkest days.
it is. And I was born, um, and I was born, of course I was, we're all born, but I was born in a family that took me to church, right? So I was always surrounded by God and I believed in God. But today I have a different understanding. Today I have a spiritual connection. And it's so beautiful because I think a lot of people turn against organized religion because of the rules and the things we're taught. And we're taught to be fearful of God.
And I always say, like, when people mention organized religion, and I say, I agree. I don't like organized religion either. It's a relationship. It's the relationship that you have with your father. It's not a religion, it's the relationship. And I think that's the difference too. You're not
Yeah.
doing it because of these rules. You're doing it because you actually have a relationship with our Heavenly Father and you want to please him.
Yeah. And just have the faith. Because when I turned it over, I allowed my higher power to guide my life. We all have a plan, right? A plan that has been made for us. We're not making that. We didn't create that plan. We all have the ability to live our happiest lives. And like someone that feels stuck, right? Finding that passion for themselves. It's in there. But a lot of times we have so much fear. We're so afraid to go after it. We're so afraid to let other people down around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, when you are happy, when you are filling yourself up, you are better for everyone around you. And so I say, if there's something you keep thinking about, if there's something that people come to you, like maybe it's tech, maybe it's baking, right? Maybe it's interior design, whatever it is. These are things that you can build on to start finding your passion and living your passion and living your path to happiness, because don't feel like everything has to be perfect. I mean, this life I built, being an entrepreneur, building my own show, I didn't know how to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but I started. You got to
Yeah.
start.
I love
And
that.
yeah,
Yeah, there's so many moms with gifts that, just like you said, they're stuck and they don't know what to do with them, not realizing that these gifts can bring fulfillment and also help those around them that they're supposed to help. Like by
yeah,
you pursuing your passion and your purpose, like you're helping so many people, even with the challenges that you've gone through and the trauma that you've gone through, you're helping people. And I think a lot of moms, they don't understand that.
I know today that I had to go through everything that I went through to do what I'm doing today, right?
Mhm.
So no matter what we go through, we all have a story. We all go through failures. We all have things that have harmed us or hurt us or that we hold on to. Um, but what we need to do is find a way that we can find the lessons in those and realize that we're not alone, and then we're going to get to the other side. We're always going to get to the other side.
Yeah. And just really quickly, Marcy, there may be some moms listening, they want to start a talk show. And I know this may be very naive, me even asking this question, because I know it's probably easier these days than back in the day. Like I used to have a talk show on cable access. I don't know if you remember cable access.
Yeah, I do.
What would you say to, there's a mom listening, she wants to start her own talk show. And I know it's easier these days with technology, with podcasting, YouTube, etc. But what would you say if she said, I want to start my own talk show? Like, where do I even start? Like, how do I even start this process?
Well, you come to me and let me help you, first of all. No, Well, I'm going to just say, find what your mission is. What is it that you want to discuss on the talk show? Why are you doing it? Right? For me, it was to tell stories of empowerment, transformation, to spread hope. Right? That is why. What is your why? Who are you talking to? Who are you wanting to help? When you are looking to interview, always think of the audience, the viewer, right? What are they getting? I hear you all the time. You're sitting here. What can a mom out there get from what you're talking about? Then, what platform do you want to be on? I started on Facebook Live with a talk show called Coffee with Marci. At that time, I was interviewing entrepreneurs and nonprofits in my area and my community, and I built it from there, right? So you start somewhere. And you can start with your phone. There's so much equipment out there. You know, you can start with your phone, you can start with your computer, you get your lighting, you get your sound, you find your first guest, and, just get out there also and find someone that you could say is a mentor that you want to be like. And don't be like that person, but just take from them what it is that you like to get started. And these are just some things to get you started. Go on YouTube, whatever it is. But I just want to say, start. Write these things down, get your mission clear, and then start.
I love that. And it's so much easier these days to start.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, I don't even know how long ago, I don't know if cable access is still a thing, but I started a talk show on cable access.
Yeah.
Sherry Shepherd was my first guest years ago, like before we were even moms. And then I just started having guests on the show. I didn't even really know what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to interview people who made an impact in other people's lives. And I started on cable access. So it is easier these days, with podcasting, like you mentioned, Facebook Live. And then, it could grow from there. So from your point of view, after you started on Facebook Live, did it get picked up to a network? Like, how did you
So what happened was I had the show for about a year and I had someone come to me that had a streaming network. He asked if he could pick up my show. And I said, absolutely. It was a local New Jersey streaming network. I said, absolutely. And so we started working together and I started having him produce my show because he was also a producer. And it just evolved. He was helping out somebody else with a talk show. And I said, you know what? Like, as much as I love this show and what I'm doing, I was growing so much in my healing journey and I knew I wanted to do more. And that's where Wake Up with Marci came. And he helped me to get it on the television networks and bring it to a level that it needed to be at that time. And I just continue to grow because now it's a nationally syndicated television show and it's on WLNY TV. So it's a New York based television show. So it has to, be at a certain level. But I'm very grateful for that. But you know what? I started and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And I just knew from my path that I was meant to be doing what I was doing. And I think that I just want to express upon your listeners that whatever your path is, whatever you start doing, if you are finding many obstacles and it's not easy, then maybe that's not your path and that's okay. But once you start finding the path you are meant to lead, that you are meant to follow, everything will easily happen for you. People will come into your life that will help you, right? Opportunities will be brought to you. Just things will be more, it's still hard work, don't get me wrong, but there'll be more of an ease to it.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you so much, Marci, for being on today. Now, where can people find you if they want to know more about your story or buy your book?
So first of all, you can go to my website called, it's Wake Up with Marci. That's the name of the show, Wake Up with Marci with an I.com. My show is on WLNY TV 1055 in the tri-state area. You can also catch it streaming on Hulu Live, Fubo TV, Binge TV. There's multiple streaming networks. And I'm also in California in different areas. You hit everywhere. So I guess really the best way to do this is go to wakeupwithmarci.com to find my book, which I wanted to share. Listen, you think that I would have ever wrote a book? I didn't think that was possible. Okay. I was guided to do that. And now my book has been out almost 2 years. It's about to come out in Spanish. And I just won the International Impact Book Award for my book. Okay. Chaos to Clarity, Seeing the Signs and Breaking the Cycles. Out of 50 books that were submitted in the alcohol and addiction category, my book won. I'm so grateful. So grateful. So I just want you to know that it's not just a memoir. It really, truly is a guided self-help book to help those out there that are struggling, that have struggled, and also for those that have parents or people in their lives that are dealing with addiction. There's so much help out there, and I hope that my book can help you. So it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart.com, Goodreads.
All right, so we've come to the end of another episode. My prayer is that you found hope and healing in these messages. If you did, would you do me a favor and share it with another mom who could also use this episode? As you know, my podcast is meant to be a blessing to mothers, so any support that you can give would be so appreciated. Until next time.